let me introduce my guest to you. Dr. Joshua Zato is a senior lecturer at the Department of Political Science at the University of Ghana. And of course, Amanda Clinton is the head of Clinton Consultancy, head of chambers for Clinton Consultancy, and they join us. In the course of the conversation, I'll introduce my third guest to you. Welcome, Amanda and Dr. Zato.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
They say ladies first, so I'll always start with Amanda. Amanda, there's so much going on in the country right now, from the various arms of government, from CSOs, in terms of the economy. Some money has been injected into the economy. I don't know what your take would be, but it's time for us to share your thoughts with us, and you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think I'll keep it positive in terms of focusing on, I think the IMF $365 or $367 million hit our accounts yesterday, which Joy News was good at alerting the nation on.
Yeah.
And it's really good because I think this first tranche of money under this new government is meant to be for development, so not export and import, foreign aid or loan repayments or remittance. So it'll be very good to see how the Mahama government uses this for development. And I think Mahama said when he got into, when he was running for this election cycle and got into power, that he's not going to cancel, the $3 billion loan. So if this is going to be used for development, which they say it is, it'll be good to see how well it's spent for Ghana's good.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying. That is the first time that this administration is receiving that, a bailout of a sort. So let's see how they expend the money.
Yes.
Great point. Dr. Zato, last time you were here was a very interesting conversation we had. Our viewers had a lot to say about you.
Oh, really?
On the live stream, I went back to read the comments. They thought you were very passionate.
Oh, thank you.
About certain topics.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's get into your thoughts for us this morning.
I kind of feel, blessed, surrounded by two very beautiful, smart, and intelligent women.
Because somebody else...
Oh, come on. I don't want anybody to rain on my parade, Now, let me just enjoy this,
Yeah.
I want to thank you. Thank you, good morning. Yes, sir. And, I'm happy to be back here and to look at these issues. And as she rightly said, the issues of the economy are very important to all of us. And sometimes the problem I have is that when you're talking to students or anybody else, the question is, IMF conditionalities. IMF is very harsh. IMF is telling us not to do A, not to do B, not to do C. At the beginning of this year, we've seen people praising the finance minister, going out of the way to praise the finance minister for how he has managed the economy. We've also been told how the Bank of Ghana has managed the economy very well. Well, this is what is happening. The IMF has begun cautioning us that the dollar stability you are seeing is artificial. It's not because some genius sat somewhere, came out with some smart plans, some smart, intelligent idea to get it. No, it's artificial. You are pumping so much dollars in the system that it is absorbing what is happening and therefore leading to what? The lower interest rate. That is what IMF is saying. And they are warning. That's the point. You see, we as a country, we do this. We go on doing this, ignoring the warning, ignoring the warnings, until one day we are told that we have to go to the IMF for a bailout, and they come with our conditionalities, and then we begin to what? Complain about the conditionalities. But this is where it starts. They are telling us that the path on which you are is not a sustainable path. They are telling us that injecting dollars just into the economy to artificially keep the dollar rate low is not smart economic management. That is what they are saying. Look, this is some analysis here. The MPP added an average 1.1 tons of gold per month. NDC is doing about 0.2 tons per month. So what is simply happening is that the gold prices are very high, that. So government is making a lot of money. So instead of adding so much more to the gold, we are simply using the revenue from the gold, the dollars, to show up what is happening in the economy. So it is creating this artificial rate. My point is that we will ignore this. I know. We will ignore this IMF warning. As a country, we did it. The last government probably borrowed too much, led us to where we are. Right now, we are seeing a similar thing happening. We should start by trying to live our life or manage the economy on reality, not on borrowed terms. We should live the economy, but not by artificial means, but let it find its way. Because this is a bit dangerous trend. And ordinarily, when the IMF panel comes back with their conditionalities, guess who is going to suffer? The so-called ordinary man on the street.
All right. So that's your 2 minutes. Are you saying that, I hear what you're saying in terms of what the IMF is warning, but it's not just the gold. If you listen to the explanation that this administration has been giving in terms of what accounts for the growth we are seeing, however, albeit you say it's not realistic, we cannot say that just because they're giving us these, caution, we shouldn't continue to do the other things like the strict, fiscal policy, like the other things that they are citing as the reason we're seeing these gains made.
No,
you say that they're injecting a lot of dollars.
No, that's what the IMF is saying. The IMF is saying that.
Yes, same thing. But I'm saying that's not the only reason we are seeing the macro indicators improve. No,
it's not the only reason, but it's part of it. Yes. And it's a major part of it. The IMF is simply saying that, look, you are doing something very artificial. For instance, you are not allowing the dollar and the cedi to trade freely as
that's
you do.
Only on one part.
On one
part.
Point
I'm trying to start.
I also agree. I'm not saying it's the only part, but I'm saying that it's a major part. And that is a warning. As a country, we need to heed that warning. As a country, we cannot ignore it, because when we ignore it, we know down the line something is going to happen. The second thing that is happening is the government has not started spending.
Yes.
The government is not yet spending.
They have released that $4 billion to pay contractors.
Okay. So they are beginning to spend. So they're just beginning to do. So the point I'm making is that there are so many things. If you are not spending, if the commodity prices are very high, and if you are artificially holding the dollar down, they all have implications.
Okay.
My point is that the short term, we are seeing the short term implications. Are they sustainable?
And I like to say, posterity will judge us all. Time will tell whether these are.
But sometimes we don't have to wait for posterity, because we can see it coming. Like, you can see it coming.
Amanda, do you get the same sense, though? I mean, I hear what the IMF is saying. Do you get the same sense that we should heed this caution by all means? Otherwise, we are looking, we are staring down what's it called? Something down the barrel or something. There's an expression like that.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely think that Ghana is just trying to do the best we can to, make the cedi stronger, et cetera, and, of course, these injections mean that it can be a buffer. It's creating a quote-unquote false economy, et cetera. But I think one should always be well-intentioned. And, the finance minister seems to be well-intentioned in terms of he's trying to make the cedi stronger. He's trying to strengthen our economy. And given that this is the first tranche of, 367 million under this new government, it's best to watch how they handle it. Is it for development, or is it for BOP, balance of payments?
Yeah.
And if they handle it more for development and we see a return, these are the sort of things we should be watching. So IMF, everything he said is right, but, that was under a previous administration per se. So this 367 million under a new administration, let us see if it works better for Ghana. And, IMF is not the gospel. Hopefully we will become the gospel of how we dictate our economy.
Okay. So let's drop it there then. So you say heed the caution by all means, and she says the IMF is not the gospel.
Actually, the IMF is. No, it's the gospel.
Not the gospel.
Because when you are in trouble, you run to God, right? When we are in trouble, we run to IMF.
Oh, they're not the gospel.
So you see,
no, they are.
You also said something about being well-intentioned. I remember, some of the promises that were made is that we will not go back to the IMF. So if they have a way, let's see how that all plays out.
Yes, but I think Mahama also did say that, he doesn't want to cancel this $3 billion IMF. So, you can't say you don't want to cancel and then say you're not going to go back. So it's a way of making this money work for Ghana, and a way of using debt wisely. America has beyond trillions of dollars of debt, but they're trying to make it work for them. And so it's for us to make it work for us.
The issue is that if you look at this money that's coming inside, it's because of what the previous government did. The previous government negotiated and got it, so it's coming inside. The point we are trying to make is this: look, you cannot be spending your way, or you cannot be artificially inducing things the way it's not supposed to be done, and not heeding the caution of the bank. Not heeding the caution, because IMF is God. Look, IMF is God when it comes to global financing. IMF is God when it comes to this because, again, the point is this. When you run into trouble, whom do you run to? God. You go to pray, right? When the finance of this economy is about to collapse, we run to IMF. And they're telling us that you are on the path there right now.
Okay.
Okay, can I make a point about IMF is God? I think someone made an interesting analogy in Texas recently that they just had some horrific floods. And they referenced the point that a Texas governor or someone had actually said less than 24 hours beforehand that even if God was an illegal immigrant, they would deport him. Less than 24 hours, unfortunately, that horrific flood hit. So we will not sit here and say anybody but God is God, perhaps. But IMF is a useful tool.
No, but we are talking within the context, and we are saying within the context of international finance. IMF is God.
IMF is not God in any context.
In the context of international finance, IMF is God. You say no, you cannot say IMF is not God when you go begging the IMF for support. You cannot say IMF is not God when your economy is about to collapse. The first person you run to is IMF. You cannot say IMF is not God even when you're looking for international validation, you go to
IMF. Is the monetary
so that's the context. But IMF is a God in international financial systems. Those what you are saying, and this is those are two conflicting things. They don't even match.
Hold on.
Yes.
Hold on, Amanda. Would you see the sense in strictly financially speaking, IMF is God? Could you accept that?
I will never accept that because I just think that we shouldn't use the term God lightly, and that where Africa should get to is the stage where we have more pride in what we are attempting to do, and in so doing we can look to IMF for the benefits, just treat them like a bank but with 0% interest up to a certain stage, etc., and utilize them as a tool and know that we are coming to the table with a lot and how we are going to renegotiate ourselves. But once a nation starts looking at any sort of monetary fund as a god, then you start behaving like a servant to that and not understanding your rights.
I see your trailer.
Your rights and your ability to leverage and to dictate your own terms within your sphere and to improve. And so that is why I do not look at IMF as Ghana's God, particularly in finance. And I do know it is a metaphor that you are referring to. But once we start putting organizations in perspective, we can start coming to the negotiation table, as someone who deserves to be on that seat or on that table, but not worshipping that we do not know of, basically.
Okay, so the second question for Dr. Zato comes in is, every time we've come near collapse, the economy, we run to these financial funds for aid, be it World Bank, IMF, all these other international funds who can help us out. So strictly financially speaking, if you're running to, quote unquote, a savior every time you need that help, and they're telling you that the way you are running your economy, the path, they say to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And so they're asking you to get armed because they see that the path you're on may lead to another destruction, another near collapse, and you might come running back to us. And they're saying this to an administration who said that they will not go back to the IMF in terms of after they complete this particular bailout, they don't intend to go back. And of course, we've heard previous administrations say that, and they just went right back, and plunged us into the same situation. So removing the word God, can we say that they are saviors? They have more experience in terms of running economies and how to sustain the economy. And at the risk of losing our sovereignty and everything that you're talking about, they are still way ahead in terms of the ability to predict with a certain degree of accuracy whether or not our actions can lead us into, a ditch or not.
I wouldn't fully agree with that because I feel as if the world's finance system is like a bad algorithm in terms of once you set the algorithm in a particular way, it means that, certain other things cannot flow the way they should. For instance, Africa has the most resources on the entire, in the entire world. Nobody, including the IMF, will dispute that. Natural resources we have, but the way the financial algorithm has been set, it means that we cannot, with the narrative and with the rules and everything, benefit as much. And so if we're dealing with a bad financial algorithm that is the world stage, how can we slowly get out of that by knowing how to leverage off debt in a better way, by trying to get to the position where China is getting to, where, okay, fine, you guys used us for a while, but once, we get to a certain stage, we're going to turn the narrative and things around. You know what I mean? So Africa has not got to the stage where China is, where they deliberately just said, okay, fine, you guys make all your goods here, blah, blah, blah. And then they started learning more, till they're dictating the terms, etc., but not fully. Okay. So again, if the world's finance system is set like a bad algorithm, because, I mean, before we have to remember that gold was linked to how wealthy a dollar is and how, but gold is not linked to anything. It's not linked. So they're just writing a blank check. It's a computer that gives out $1 trillion. Who's running it? That's
a very interesting.
We have the bad end of the deal. Okay. So how do we get a better end? And how do we learn to come to the table, learn more and more and more? Don't treat them like gods. But we have seats at the table, and we start renegotiating our terms. And that is what I think. I mean, I've looked at some of the things the finance minister is doing, and it seems he has a bit more confidence of coming to the table.
All right.
But we cannot treat IMF as a god, and whether metaphorically or not, I would not say IMF is a god. And we have seats at the table that might not be equal, but they will be if we turn this bad algorithm, financial algorithm, upside down, basically.
So, how do you counter that? And I commend you for listening throughout, not trying to interject. So now you've listened to her entire trail of thought in terms of why she cannot accept that. She says that we're coming from colonial, I don't want to go back to, but that is what it looks like, that you have masters and then you work under them, and there's a sort of structure, and so they've created this elusive idea of what an economy is and the money, where it comes from. And so you are saying that we have sovereignty, we are not as self-reliant as we ought to be or would like to be, but we can learn and eventually get there. Take our losses, take our wins, and just do what we can and get there. Not necessarily acquiesce to the whims and caprices of a god. That's her argument. That's the entire argument. So what are you saying about that?
That argument, for me, it seems warped and weird. There's something called the post-war economy.
Yeah.
And how the post-war economy came around. And the role of the Bretton Woods in that post-war economy. Guarantors and saviors of the global economic system and how that system works. Ghana is a member of that global financial system. If you produce, you sell, and then you make your income. Whatever you do depends on the strength of your economy. It is not the IMF that says that we should continue to be producers of raw materials. The IMF didn't say that. The IMF didn't say we should continue to produce raw cocoa and just continue to depend on the Gogisbed economy. The IMF did not say that. The IMF did not say we should produce raw gold and just export it. The IMF did not say that. If you do not have the capacity to add value to your products, that is not what the IMF said. So the IMF is simply telling you that if you manage your economy very well, you don't need to come to us for a bailout.
Hold on, I hate to interject, but let me give you another angle. And she's saying that we are coming from a place where these actions, the way we do things, were learned. Because we had colonizers who taught us that take your gold and then give it to us and we can refine it and give you the refined product and you have to come and buy it from us. So the structure, the entire system has been created to keep us where we are. And so they are the ones now telling us, do this, don't do that. And we are saying, okay, that's what you think. But we have sovereignty. We have seen, we've run our country for over 60 years. We are willing to take risks and see just where we land with that. So IMF did not tell us to export raw gold, but they have created a system that we come out of, which makes it impossible for us to compete with them or rub shoulders with them at the level that they are, because they are the ones running the system.
It's a bad algorithm.
The IMF tells you, you, don't interject so much dollars into your economy. When you do that, you are creating an artificial system by keeping your currency distant. That's an advice. That's a financial advice. You ignore it. Imagine this. Just imagine you go to the bank and take a loan to build a house. Then you come and you decide to use the loan to build to throw a very big party. I hope you invite me to that party, spend all the money. The IMF is telling you, don't do that party because the party is going to finish, the guests are going to leave, and you're going to sit empty-handed, you have nothing. And then you are saying that the IMF should not tell you that. You are saying that, and then when you do the party, when you spend the money wastefully, and now you are broke, you now sit there and say, well, is the IMF this? How is that? That's what I'm saying. That logic doesn't fit. Look, if you want to add value to your products, do that. If you want to, right now, as I said, we're having a windfall from gold. The prices of gold are very high. But everybody that knows that it is not going to last. Prices of international products like this fluctuate, and when they fluctuate, it's going to have an effect on you. So build, show up your reserves, so that when the global economy begins to do that, it doesn't negatively affect you. That's what the IMF is saying. Now, whether you believe IMF is a god or it's not god, when it comes to global international financing, IMF is a god because, one, markets listen to the IMF. Two, governments listen to the IMF. Analysts listen to the IMF. Every single economist in the world is able to tell you that what the IMF is saying is meritorious. What the IMF is saying is for the good of your economy. What the IMF is saying is for the health of your economy. You can reject it like we've rejected in the past. But when you reject it, and then when you crash land, don't say that the IMF did not tell you. They've told you.
Thank you for that.
And so I think I'll just close on this one point, that this $367 million is supposed to be for budget alignment on development and not simply BOP, which is balance of payments for export and import, foreign aid, investment inflows, loan repayments or remittance. So it is focused on development. So since we have a new government, let us see how they use this first 367 million, because what you are saying is perhaps something of the past, and we are hoping, because that is what we do, we move forward in hope that things will become better, that this new money is going to be a signal for development, etc., so that what other people term as God will not come back and say you used it for something
we have
else.
to move on from this and get into other stories.
Sure.
So, I mean, I see the argument is really interesting for me, and I see this as a child and a parent situation. You are saying, I want to make my own mistakes and learn from them. And you are saying,
no, we have made our own mistakes.
We have
made our own mistakes. The finance minister, they were all in Washington, begging the IMF, pleading for this thing. They were all over the place begging. We have seen the child bend himself and come there.
To the wind.
I'm saying that stop spending like a rap star in the Las Vegas casino and do the right thing.
Dr. Zato, there's a story on myjoyonline.com. Let's get into other stories. So, National Cathedral Board opposes attempts to convert project into cultural center. I think on the 1st of July, when the National Day of Prayer and Thanksgiving, the president announced that we're going to turn the National Cathedral into a cultural center. The arguments have been pouring in since then, and now the board of directors of the National Cathedral have also expressed themselves, and they are opposed to the attempts to convert the state-owned land designated for the National Cathedral into a cultural convention center. And I just want to get a quote out here, and they are saying the reason why they are opposed to this is that the integration of additional elements, including a Bible museum, that tells the history and contributions of the church in Ghana and Africa, including the Ghanaian and African diaspora, ensures the cathedral is also developed as a heritage and cultural site that promotes religious pilgrimage and international tourism. They're saying the cardinal value of this, the building or the intention behind erecting a national cathedral should not be completely thrown away now that we want to turn it into a cultural convention center. And so we can still achieve that without turning it completely into a cultural center of a sort. So let's just proceed with the plan. Meanwhile, we've seen how much money has already been sunk into that hole.
A hole
that was turned into a swimming pool at some point. So I don't know what they're saying, but let me hear you out on this. Dr. Zato, I'll start with you.
You see, I want to go from where you just ended. Okay. If so much money has been sunk into a hole, why don't you just close the hole? Why don't we just throw the hole away? When you make it look like there's nothing productive or there's nothing meritorious from that hole, when that is your argument, your central argument, why don't you just close the hole? Why do you keep digging that hole? Why do you want to go and keep digging that hole? You understand? Mm-hmm. If there is absolutely no value to that hole, why could you? Look, a lot was said about the National Cathedral. Mm-hmm. A lot has been said about it. My point is that please, just close that hole.
When close that hole means forget about the entire.
Forget about it. You said it was. You said it has no value. You said it has no merit. You said that it was a pit of corruption. You said so many things about it. So my point is that if that's the case, close the hole and let's move on. The land is there. Now, if you have come and you are now saying that my priorities have changed, if your argument is that, well, when I was in opposition, I thought that nothing meritorious could come out of this hole. If your argument is that when I was in opposition, I thought that this hole was a useless hole. If your argument is that when I was in opposition, we thought that this hole was just a complete waste of national resources. But now I have come back to power. I've come to power. I've had time to think. I've looked at it, and I think that, you know what? There is value to this hole after all. You know what? This hole could be used for something better for the country after all. And you've admitted it. That's fine. It's good, it's okay, it's normal, it's acceptable to change your mind. It's acceptable to say this. But my point is that you can then do both. What the president is now saying and the idea of the National Cathedral are both mutually inclusive, therefore. Because you can just say, look, the original intention, if it was just to be used as a church, because we've seen interdenominational churches, right? We've also seen churches where cathedrals rooms are used for other cultural activities. My point is that you can add on, you can build on. Use part of it for whatever functions you want to do, then you still keep some part of it for prayer. But for me, I'm happy that at the end of the day, the government is saying that, or the government is understanding or acknowledging that there is some value to this after all. I'm happy that at the end of the day, the government is saying that there was some wisdom to this whole idea after all.
Okay.
I'm happy that at the end of the day, somebody said, well, you know what, you can make something out of this. When you do that and you just, I'm saying, look, just play the rhetoric of people who get when we're pushing, and then play what's happening. See, and that is sometimes what I say. When you sometimes we campaign in poetry and we govern in prose. And so I'm not surprised at this. When you come, you can sit and say, look, I've looked at all these options and I think that we can go with this. When that happens, sometimes politicians are not magnanimous enough to accept that, look, when we're in a position, either we took it too far or when we got it.
All right.
But that is what I'm saying. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to say that, you know what, probably I was too harsh, or I just don't do this. But if you wanted to go with the rhetoric that you came with, let's close the damn hole.
Okay. So it's a good time to introduce my third guest to you. We have the legislator for Chifuiti Mokwa, Mr. David Von D. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you on the AM show.
Thank you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I ran late a little. You have to forgive me. Viewers would have to forgive me. I mean, this time around, we do Parliament from 2 p.m.
Yeah.
And we do it so much into the night. And so sometimes it's difficult when you have to wake up and take care of yourselves and little things, you know. But it's fine. I mean,
it's all good. You are here, so let's get the conversation going.
Yeah.
And I want to go to Amanda on the National Cathedral, and then I'll come back to you. Then I'll put 2 issues that we've already discussed before you.
Yes.
So, Amanda, what do you say? He says, Dr. Von D says, no, that's not Dr. Von D, sorry. Dr. Zato said, close the hole. We campaign in poetry and we govern in prose. I think that will stick with me for a while. What do you say?
I think some of this 367 million IMF money can be put into this hole because it only became a hole because perhaps the money wasn't properly spent, and that is what something the Attorney General's Department, I think, is looking into. It only became a hole because money wasn't spent as it was supposed to. Secondly, I think that the people on that board, in terms of the church board, have got to revisit their Bible in terms of what is a church. A church means the gathering of the people. And the gathering of the people, you know, from what Jesus intended, was not 1 hour on a Sunday where the poor are left out and the rich come in and, you know, so forth. So a cultural center is open to the people, can be used 24/7, and is designated for different religions in terms of the culture of Muslim heritage, the culture of Christian heritage, the culture of the Adinkra symbols, and everything that is Ghana, everything that is Africa, and you know, turn it into a momentous building of worth. And so for me, church means the gathering of the people. And perhaps the true intention of the gathering of the people is that it runs 24/7, it runs for different purposes, it can be for profit for Ghana, and it makes a difference because the definition by the Dictionary of a Cultural Center is a public or private institution that serves as a hub for artistic, educational, and cultural activities. It includes galleries, theaters, libraries, studios, performances, spaces, and classrooms, and hosts workshops, exhibitions, festivals, and lectures. So I would rather a 24/7 building that I would be proud of as a Ghanaian, because when foreigners come to visit me, I can take them to this hub that good money has been put into and it's been resurrected from a hole.
Okay.
Essentially.
So your argument is we are seeing a hole only because the money wasn't
Wasn't
expended the way they ought to
you
have.
can't
That's
spend
why
over
we see,
$10 million and
give
have a
us
home,
that.
and
Okay.
have a home.
Okay. So that's why we have a hole.
Yes, and a cultural
So,
center is for everybody and for different avenues.
Yeah, and not just, divided along religious lines.
Or 2 hours on a Sunday. It's Monday to Sunday.
But the original plan of this had museums. In fact, there was such a Bible museum. The original plan had them. That's what I'm saying.
You had your time. You had your time, please. So, Mr. Bondi, this is the argument. On the 1st of July, the president said that we're going to turn the National Cathedral into a cultural convention center. Now, I know it stirred up so many arguments. Now, the board of directors of the National Cathedral, they are opposed to this. And they're saying that instead of turning this whole National Cathedral thing, and the land, for instance, was given to the National Cathedral. It's a whole project, and so much has gone into that. Instead of turning it to a cultural convention center, just let us complete the National Cathedral. What do you say? So Mr. Bondi is saying that because of the posturing, Dr. Zato and Mr. Bondi. So Dr. Zato is saying because of the posturing of the NDC in the lead up to election 2024, they didn't see any value at all in that National Cathedral and what we are seeing right now. Amanda said it's because the money was spent wrongly. What do you say? Close the hole, or just turn it into something the whole country can benefit from?
Sometimes when I hear the MPP talked about the National Cathedral issue, the way they do, I feel really scandalized. Because it's a project that they themselves, they knew that was a creation that they use in looting this country's resources. Because you can't tell me that the thing they did there, the hole they dug there, cost the Ghanaian taxpayer more than $60 million. And that's what we're talking about. There is absolutely nothing going on there.
You have your visuals on the screen.
But the point is, what even did we used to have there? You had judges having their, bungalows there built not long ago. You have the passport office there. You have so many very important offices there. What the MPP did is that they did not see any other land anywhere. They did not go towards Pram to see that vast land there to build whatever cathedral they want to build there. What they did was to demolish all those important offices and accommodations, only to dig that hole. And they had the gut to talk about what we want to use that thing for. Sometimes the MPP will need to keep quiet for some time. I think that His Excellency is being very charitable and saying that we should use that particular facility for something else. Left to me alone, we will finish prosecuting them, all the board members, all the pastors and the clergies that have double names.
Why do we need to prosecute all the board members and all the pastors? I'm just quoting you now. Why do we need to prosecute all of them?
See,
there's an ongoing investigation tied to Ken Ofori-Atta. It's one of the reasons why the OSP is looking for him to answer questions.
Our religious leaders, whether imams, whether pastors and traditional leaders, are supposed to be moral leaders. And so if you are a pastor and you can even double your name all because you want to make illegal money and lead the country into losing that kind of money on this kind of agenda, all in the name of building a church for God, I wonder the kind of church you can even build for a whole God to come and live in. That alone is corruption. And so they all have questions to answer. Okay. And so for me, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has been so charitable in using that particular facility for something that maybe, look, I was in London, last week, and then I was in the House of Commons and, House of Lords. And if I told the whole building, if you see the cultural display, the historical, display of the place, you will love it. Ghana here, where will you go? So for me, if His Excellency John Dramani Mahama feels that we should use that to build a cultural center where our identity will be displayed, would serve as a tourist hub for people to walk in there and see what Ghana is and make money from it, I think it makes sense.
Okay.
I don't know the kind of bricks and blocks that would be built for gods to come and live in Ghana. If you're God, would you come and stay in Ghana because they've built some house here called Cathedral?
We can't think for
And I'm not sure God lives in blocks and mortars.
No.
God lives in hearts. God lives in you. Where you hear God is in you. You don't need to build. I mean, if God wants to live somewhere, Duncan Williams Church is a beautiful church. I mean, Church of Pentecost, I'm a Church of Pentecost elder. We've built a nice place at Yesu Krum. We even named it Yesu Krum, So God could have
following
gone to
that
live
argument,
there.
we can also tell you
So
that
for me,
you asked the question, where would we go? We can go to the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park.
That's fine.
We can go to the other tourist
So for me,
sites
if you
here
ask
in
my
Ghana.
opinion about that particular project, it is purely a hospital for children hospital, specialized hospital, something monumental.
Okay.
And I don't think that the cultural sector, for that
We need
project
that.
is also
Okay,
bad.
so,
For me,
yeah.
I don't think the MPP should be talking about the cathedral. What I think they should be doing is preparing themselves to answer questions as to how they sunk that kind of money into that project, just like that.
All right.
I think that they have no moral right, to question what His Excellency John Dramani Mahama want to use that project for.
All right.
Not at all.
Dr. Zato, I see you want to reflect. Last word on this. Make it very brief.
All I'm just going to say is that governance is a continuum. There are policies of a former government that have been continued or they are going to be continued. There are policies of a former government that are going to be terminated. Today, this national cathedral is going to be owned, from now onwards, owned by the current government. Ghanaians and nobody will be seeing what they are going to do with it. But I believe strongly that the original intention of a national cathedral are still valid, they are still meritorious. If people have mismanaged funds, that is a different thing. Prosecuting them, investigating, prosecuting them, that is it. But I don't think that should be used as a form of trying to gag people. I don't think that threat of prosecution or threat of imprisonment should be used as a sword of Damocles hanging on people, then to try to tell them, don't say anything because of this. No. Nobody, and I will not sit here and try to justify that if somebody mismanaged resources, if somebody stole resources, if somebody do the right thing, investigate, prosecute, and if you have a conviction, you jail the person. But the government will own this, and I'm happy. In fact, I'm also happy that at least we are not being told that there is some merit and there's some value to this whole, that it is not as useless after all. And that, wait, we can do something. All I'm simply saying is that the ideas that Amanda is talking about and the ideas that the Honorable is talking about, you can contain all those ideas within the concept of a national cathedral. There are beautiful cathedrals in New York that tourists visit. There are beautiful cathedrals in Washington that they visit. So I'm saying that all these are what? Mutually inclusive, not exclusive. So the segments, some segments could be converted into a conference center, or you could even have, we have interdenominational or multipurpose halls.
Okay.
So you could make it in such a way that if you need it for religious purposes, you can reconfigure it. And use it as a religious purpose. If you want it as a cultural center, you can use it for the so we can have performances and others like we have a national theater. The point is that all these are mutually inclusive. But at least the fundamental thing as a country is that we are beginning to say, and I agree with the president, that there is some value to that original idea, and that we should pursue it. That's okay.
The money that has been sunk in there already, would you rather we just forgot about it? No, so that money would.
That's why governments have voted. Government makes a choice. So I think what the government is saying is that if you were a member of the board or administrator or this or that thing, and you have wasted government resources and you have stolen government resources, if you understand, you should be prosecuted. I have absolutely no problem with that. That is fine. Then the question then is, okay, whilst you are doing that, what then do you do with what is left behind? And I think that is, you are beginning to see that. All I simply say, don't use the threat of investigation or the threat of jail or the threat of prosecution to then try to silence people from making a contribution.
You think that the government
yes, I'm saying that it is being used as kind of a sword of Damocles hanging over, because you see people telling the board don't talk. Why shouldn't they talk? If somebody on the board has done something wrong, arrest the person,
Right,
prosecute the person. But they should be able to talk.
Just quick one. Dog, as at the time the decision was made to build that cathedral, when our cedi to the dollar was skyrocketing, when the Ghanaian school-going children have no place to go to school, where we have no quality education, where the schools that we built were left into the bushes to rot, you thought that was the best decision to take at the time? You thought that was where we could put our money?
No, he's asking me a direct question. Should I answer it?
Doc, listen. No,
are you asking me? No, ask me a direct question. Let me answer.
I'm not asking you.
I think I'll give you time.
Okay, to answer.
I want you to listen.
Okay.
Where things were out of control in this country, where raters of our economy rated our economy as a junk economy, the best the government will do was to put our money in building a cathedral with all kind of issues around it. Is that where you would have put your money if you had the power to control our economy at the time? Please. And then you're talking about value. You don't define value at that time, building the cathedral. What were you going to make out of it?
Okay, so for the sake of time, I think you should land on this point.
So please,
30 seconds, respond, because I think the question was asked to you.
So the same things he's talking about still exist. The things he's talking about, everything the Honorable Minister, they still exist. I'm saying that they still exist.
You mean
today our economy still has problems?
No.
There are hospitals too that still have problems. There are schools still under trees. So my point, again, then you come back to, then close the hole. The money you will use for the cultural center, put it into schools, put it in healthcare, put it in the big push project. My point is that governments make their own priorities. Government decide what's a priority.
One flaw in your counter argument, which is he made a comparison between the dollar rate, the macro or micro indicators at the time that decision was made to build a national cathedral. Vis-a-vis right now, the current weather in the economy.
Again, we've just been told that the Cedi stabilizing is artificial. That's what the IMF is telling us. It's not because of the IMF.
But what do you see yourself?
Well, I've seen that it's true. There's value to what they're saying. Every single economist in this country has agreed with the IMF that what you are doing is not because you're managing the economy in any smart way. You've just taken the windfall from the high gold prices to show up the city. So that's what they're saying. So my point is that governments make their own priorities. So you can now decide to say that, okay, based on where we are now, we are not going to pump any money into this culture because it's not a priority. We'll pump the money into big push. We'll pump the money into health. We'll pump the money into education. I respect that. But the president is making a priority, saying that we want to build a cultural center. It's not different from another president saying we want to build a cathedral. They are all governments choose or decide what their priorities are, and then they invest in those priorities.
Okay, so this is how it's going to go. Amanda, I want you to break this tie for me in terms of the argument, the new angle that has been introduced in terms of why it was not the best decision at the time that we were making the decision to build a national cathedral versus right now. And on the back of what the IMF, what Dr. Zato is saying, the IMF's caution is that all these growth we're seeing is artificial. Do you think that it's the same sense we can apply now that it's still not all clear yet? We shouldn't be thinking about converting, like the National Cathedral and whatever we're going to do with it should be last on our list of priorities. We shouldn't even be a conversation we should be having right now. What do you say to that? I
think it should be the first on our priorities because cultural development is what makes a nation in terms of it is who are the people, what are they like, where do they come from, what is the cultural benefit of this land? Like I went to South Africa, a few weeks ago, and it was a really good trip because there was a lot of cultural stuff to do there that I really remember, and it was very different to any other country I've been to.
You don't forget South Africa.
You don't forget South Africa. And that is what we want to instill, that people don't forget Ghana. And the most important point I think I could make is that with the cultural center, the irony is there could be multiple church services going on a Sunday. Multiple Muslim services going on, because with the cultural center, you book, you rent, growing churches and established churches can bring their base there. As long as you rent a room, then you worship, you carry on. And then other cultural things go on, and a library goes on, and, income generation for Ghana with every ethnic group welcomed. And with, you know, it is for value, like the National Theatre is for value. So when you go there and they tell you to pay a certain amount, you pay it because it is of value. A cultural centre is the next level. It would be higher, bespoke. And on a Sunday, we would not just have a cathedral, but we would have potentially 5, 10 services going on. Muslims could also have 5, 10 services going on in different rooms. So we cannot miss the point, which is money. It was a hole because money went missing, and that is what the government is looking into. And if money is well spent on that centre, it will no longer be a hole.
Okay.
And when you expand beyond just a cathedral, which basically means just for Christians, you can have a centre for Christians, for Muslims, for cultural benefit, but above all, financial benefit for Ghana and highlighting us.
All right.
And that is the benefit for me.
So, Mr. Vondi, the argument before you joined us was that the IMF has cautioned Ghana that the macro indicators this administration is touting as, you know, as a result of, you know, injecting dollars, gold, shoring up gold reserves, etc., fiscal, financial, you know, stricter financial policy and all. They're artificial, and so we shouldn't jump the gun and go ahead of ourselves and start celebrating. And Dr. Zato says the IMF knows best, and so we shouldn't throw that caution to the wind. Amanda puts up a vehement argument against that, says IMF is not God, you know, and we are a sovereign state, and we can decide to make our own mistakes. I want to hear your thoughts on that. This is what the IMF is saying.
I am beginning.
Did you say these IMF people? We
Yes,
need them. When we need them, we don't call them.
I'm beginning to see them as you know, organizations that really do not want the best for Africa. You know, if you are doing the right thing, they have a problem with it. If you are doing the wrong thing, they have a problem with it. I don't know what they want us to do. They wanted us to leave our country's economy to go to the junk as it was, that as the MPP sent it, then they clap for us. They want us to see the dollar and the Cedi, you know, the Cedi deteriorated. Is that what they wanted to see? I mean, we have gold. We use the gold to solve our problem. You don't want it. What do you want us to do? I mean, the gold we have in Ghana is not finished. It's not finishing. We used it to support the Cedi and the strength of the Cedi. We all can see it. You don't like it. What do you want us to do? Look, go to UK. What do they have, actually? They have reserves. They have gold reserves to support the pound sterling. And that's why the pound sterling is really a very strong currency. What at all do they have? More than any other country. Okay? So we have gold. We have the sense of building a gold board. And the gold board, if it's supporting the Cedi, the strength of the Cedi, then what's wrong with it? In any case, when we took over power until today, have you seen any fluctuations in the gains we've had in the Cedi against the dollar? And that is prudent management. Of course, if anybody advise you, it's fine.
If
anybody can advise you. Hold on.
Someone can answer yes, because we saw the 10, 11 drop.
No.
I mean, you can say significant.
No,
because
I mean,
then the difference is not as much as
the point is that you are looking at the dollar that the Cedi to a dollar was about 17 cedis and so
right.
on. We've managed this situation, and today the dollar is 10, you know, point something to about 11. That's remarkable. Within that space, have you seen that Cedi jumping up, you know, off the roof? No, you've not seen it. It is because we're doing something good. It's because we're using the resources we have to support ourselves. If anybody, including the IMF, feels that we shouldn't use the resources we have to support our economy in order to have a good Cedi, a good currency, a good economy, so that our, you know, then I really don't see what they are talking about.
All right.
Okay, so for me,
it
is just a way of talking down our economy, but it won't work.
Okay.
Okay.
So you also say the IMF is not God.
Listen, the gains that we're making in our economy is not artificial.
Okay.
It will grow, and we will have best economy going forward. Ghana, we have a lot of resources. Look at our gold, our timber, and so forth and so on. We shouldn't be doing what we're doing. And the MPP run the economy down. So, you know, they are envious of us. When we're doing it well, they don't want us to do it well.
I think the entire morning
we'll do
we're
it
talking
well.
about
The
money,
IMF
the
will
economy.
see it, and the Ghana's economy will grow.
All right, so let's one last story, and then I'll come to each of you for a story each in your newspapers. We have to go. Our time is almost up. Government releases 4 billion Ghana cedi to pay road contractors. I think this is an important one because we've seen the deplorable nature of our roads, especially where contractors have just up and packed and left because, you know, they got the contract, there's no money, and so all these happening. Now, this is a daily graphic. On page 13 of it, it says government will release 4 billion Ghana cedis this month to defray part of a 21 billion Ghana cedi debt owed road contractors across the country. And that is according to Kwame Govins-Agbodja, the roads minister. And he explained that the move was to enable contractors to resume work and complete work on these stalled projects. Dr. Zato, first I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy and thrilled with this.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. You see, we're told the big push was, Honorable, you can correct me, the big push was taken in June, right? Was it supposed to start in June?
Yeah.
It didn't start. June is ended, July is gone. So it doesn't matter. So they've missed that. Maybe they are pushing it. In fact, we don't have a new date when the big push will start. I think we need to know. Because I'm really invested in the big push. And I'm happy that this money is being released. Honorable, I beg you, if you go back to Parliament and you have the opportunity to talk to the minister, there's a road from Heng to JFC to Tum to Tuchilega in the Upper West region. It is the biggest road, the only road linking Upper West to Upper East. It is the biggest road connecting to Ghana's finest maize production, the whole world. Remember, we produce the best maize the whole world in the Sesala area. This road is also a national security road because sometimes when the road towards the east, the bridge is being constructed, all traffic now have to be diverted towards the west, it passes through that road. It is horrible. It is horrible. Right now, there are vehicles that may not be able to carry fertilizers to the maize farming areas. There are vehicles that may not be able to carry pesticides and weedicides to the farming areas. There are vehicles that may not be able because the roads are not good. So I'm happy. And I know that that road has been under some sort of contracts. I'm happy that this money has been released. I pray and hope that some of the contractors on this road get some of this money so that they can go and start the road. I pray and hope that this road is budgeted for and that it is not excluded from this share. I pray and hope that the whole big project, big push thing becomes a success. And I pray and hope that the government begins to spend so that contractors and other sectors of the economy that depend on this will continue to get it. I am cheering for this money release. I'm cheering for the big push project. My only hope is that this road and other roads in the Sister Enclave are not omitted, are not denied their fair share of the national cake. And I'm happy for it. Look, when these things begin to happen, we will now begin to see the strength and the resilience of our economy. When we begin to spend, we will now begin to see what will happen to our inflation. When it begins to happen, we say, but I'm happy for it. I'm cheering for the finance minister for this. Thank you, Mr. Finance Minister,
you know, the
for listening to money.
they make is that many contracts amounting to the tune of about 100 million or so. I mean, I can't quote the exact figure off the top of my mind right now. Were awarded without making financial provision for these.
I agree.
Contracts.
All I'm saying is
that. Which is why we are seeing what we are seeing.
Agree.
So as you're praying and cheering.
Yes. No. If you want to
include the roads that you just talked about, the issue also is how we have come to be here right now.
That is wrong. Again, I always agree. If you thought that the wrong thing was done in the past, correct it. That is why they are governments. Ghana actually voted for a reset. So reset it. If people broke the law in the past, deal with that. If people gave rules, do that. But I'm also saying that whilst you are doing that, and whilst you are sharing this money, and whilst you are paying the contractors, don't ignore these contractors on this road. I don't know. Right. So what I'm saying, simple matters do. You deal with, when you are a new government, you inherit assets. You also inherit what? Liabilities. When you are a new government, you inherit policy promises that may not be budgeted for, others are budgeted for. In the complete sense of all these things, you then begin to prioritize what you can do and what you cannot do. The road minister has actually traveled on this road. He has promised that he will get the road done. I'm only humbly reminding him. Right. And the honorable here, that when you also go, kindly remind him, he shouldn't forget the road. He told us that he will fix that road. I'm just begging you, honorable. Will you do that for us? Will you do that? So that we also get our share. That's what I'm saying. Please give us small. We just
Dr. Zato, yes. You're so excited.
Thank you. Oh, this road is very important to me. I'm so excited. I want to see it happen. I'm pumped.
That is a demonstration of a sarcastical behavior.
But to your point about resetting, I hear some of these awards, contracts, We've not seen contract activity on these roads.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Possibility that they'll be renegotiated.
Look, there's no contract. The road has. I'm being honest with you. That road has been awarded. There's no contractor on it.
Yes.
In fact, there are some parts that you see some contractors on. From Lelexi to Polmai to Tumu, there's a contractor doing about 30 kilometers. No, that part. From Hadekui to Lelexi to Tumu, there's a contractor about 30 kilometers has been done.
Right.
But the one from Heng to Jeffrey and to Hadekui has stalled. There's no contractor there.
Okay, so
the one from Tumu to Navrongo to Chichulga, there's no road there. So I'm being honest with you. I'm not being sarcastic.
Right.
That was what I'm saying.
Doug, you see, that's the problem your government created. Giving, contracts without source of, money to pay the contractors. Look at the Sawam Road, how it's being, how
go to the history of this road
is. I mean, these are roads that were given without any provision whatsoever to pay contractors. And these are things that you did running to the elections that you wanted to use to win votes. But Ghanaians knew your past, and so they were not going to vote for you. These are the things you did. Look, you guys came. His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
No, hold on.
I mean, just try and take the bullets because that's the truth. His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
The history of this road, the NDC, look, see, I don't always do partisanship. Okay, go ahead.
People are listening and watching us, please. His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo claimed he had constructed almost every road in this country. Remember, Nana Addo constructed most roads in this country more than any government. You remember those
the
stories?
article, yeah.
Today, you are here telling His Excellency Mahama to use big push to construct your roads. I thought you said you had constructed all the roads. In any case, that's a good news. Once the contractors are paid, all other sectors will have the effect of it, because then the banks will be resourced, and then other people can go there and borrow money and do business and so forth and so on. Now, let me tell you this. The big push is a project that will work. It's a project that is going to be massive. The road sector is going to have infrastructure and so forth and so on. Don't forget we have 4 years to be in government before elections will be held again. And so we're not going to tell you the big push is going to end tomorrow, and tomorrow. Big push is an agenda, is a program, it's a process that's going to happen. You will see it, the effect is going to be massive.
When do we begin to see?
So you see, my brother said that we said we're going to start.
It's a conversation.
Hold on.
Our audience,
and that's why I'm going to answer you.
Okay, yeah.
My brother here said that we said we're going to start the big push in June. Don't forget that, for example, the 24-hour economy has been launched, okay? The big push, June, could start with paper works and so forth and so on. Okay, so this release of money to pay contractors is part of the big push agenda. And that's what you're seeing. That's what is happening. So, look, the infrastructure development of this country is not going to, bring our city or our economy into any, disrepute, if you like. So for me, what the MPP is doing, trying to cut doubt and do it and let's see and all that, it's all because they were not able to do it and were doing it and they feel that they're not going to come to government again. And so they have to say something just to say, okay, do it and let's see. I want you to construct the road and let's see. Come. I thought you said you have done all the roads in this country.
All right.
So for me, it's a good news. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is focused. He is going to do it and he will do it. Things will be bettered. Our roads will be constructed. Central region, we have very terrible, deplorable roads. Just take a look at even Greater Accra. Look at the roads that are within the cities. And even the villages and so forth and so on. So things are going to work.
You aren't able to confirm yet exactly when we'll start to see the big push. Whether it is the paper trails you talk about, you don't have a timeline in terms of where Ghanaians will actually start to see this big push, because it cuts across so many: housing, road infrastructure, rail and urban transit, water and sanitation. These are areas of interest to the Ghanaian people.
My dear, we're just...
And it's a lot of money we're talking about.
My dear.
Which is why when people, people criticize the 24-hour economy and that 4 billion that we need, they say, well, you're talking about 10 What's the figure again?
The 24.
You're talking about $10 billion in one breath, big push.
And
then you say you're looking for $4 billion in another breath to facilitate 24 economic class.
You see the big.
It sounds like you're, mentioning a lot of figures.
Yes.
And, Ghanaians are wondering
how
you're
capable of doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know that even our debt, international debt, that we owe, the fact that we're able to work for the city's, strength, the dollar to the city rate to come down really had actually paid off some of our debt. You know that.
Yeah.
What it means is that we don't need so much cities to go and pay our debts again. You know that.
Right.
Now we're capable of doing it. Okay? So leave it for us. $10 billion.
Leave it for us.
$10
I like that.
billion.
Leave it for us.
We would find the money.
The reason we put
Thank God we've just released $4 billion to pay.
You are set to.
Absolutely.
It hasn't been released.
Don't worry, to pay, our contractors who will go back to the roads and to construct our roads.
All right.
That's a good news, and everybody should applaud His Excellency Mahama. We will get it done. There is no two ways about that.
All right.
Jobs will be done.
All right.
No two ways about
Amanda Clinton. I like that. There's another. I nearly said another.
Neutral
Yeah.
voice.
Your name is
Please, let's hear your thoughts on this.
I mean, my neutral voice is the Mahama administration is, 6 months in?
Yeah.
Roughly.
A little over.
Yes, a little over. And, it takes time to get money in, particularly when you're talking about billions. It is only as of yesterday, I think we got 367 million in that is geared towards development-led projects, and everything that is described in the big push agenda is development-led. And I'm not saying that, IMF money is just going to be used for big push agenda, but it could help. And I think income generation is very much about setting your intention, setting your goal, setting the figures you're thinking about. And then once you do that, like business, you sit back and think, okay, so how's this money going to come? And, sometimes it's the human element of it takes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. But if you set an intention and an agenda, and then you set a budget, why would you go against that? So it's about being positive, saying, well, if a couple of billion is for development, we hope it comes through. I'm not going to say, yeah, it didn't work. It's only 6 months in. I hope that.
Can we really still excuse them in terms of how much time they've spent in office? That was the excuse. I mean, for want of a better word.
That it's only 6
in the
months.
first few months that this administration took over, when we're asking questions in terms of timelines, in terms of accountability, they'll say, well, they are only 2 months in office. Well, we are only 1 month in office.
Well, I don't think
After
they
6
realize...
months, can we really still use that?
We can, because I don't think they realized how much they were going to inherit as a debt. So that is first and foremost. And secondly, they will pay at the ballot box in 3.5 years if they do not implement what they have called their signature move, which is the big push. So it is in their interest, because Ghanaians suffered, Ghanaians are suffering. One wonders how people survive off their salaries based on how inflation is in this country. So if you don't implement things like big push, which will have a trickle effect on all the people that can be paid because of the subcontractors, et cetera, and people don't feel it in their pocket, the ultimate test is in 3.5 years. So it is in their interest to set this agenda, to brand it, which they have, to say what it involves, and to give an indication of how much they're going to get. But if that money doesn't come, and people don't feel it in their pocket and it trickling down, and they feel like they're suffering, they might do what we haven't done in a long time in Ghana, which is it will only be 4 years.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Right.
So I have, I'm always positive about things like this, because it's like business. If you set an intention, you say, this is my business plan, this is how much money I'm going to pour into it, give me a bit of time, blah, blah, blah. Let's hope it happens. Why would I wish that something like that doesn't happen, and then so many lives will be affected?
Yeah. So the ultimate litmus test at this point would be how they implement it.
How they implement
and whether
it.
or not it trickles into the pockets of the ordinary
because
Ghanaian.
it is a very big brand name to say it is a big push.
Yeah.
And then you've encompassed this umbrella of all these key things under it.
Yeah.
And so if you don't do it and people don't feel it, and it's just more talk and rhetoric and blah, 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 It should be to your benefit in 3.5 years, so you should thank God.
Okay, so whether they campaign in poetry and govern in prose,
yes,
posterity will judge
they want
us
to
all.
feel it in their pockets.
I want to stay on here and give the gentleman time to breathe. Let's do one major story in your paper, and I'll come to you later.
I think I'll focus on a paper that we don't normally focus on the show, which is the Daily Democrat.
Okay.
It's leading on an interesting story, and because I haven't read most of it before, I'm going to cover it. Okay. It's about E&P defends 100 million Azuma mine deal.
Yeah.
And it obviously involves President Mahama's brother in terms of E&P. And so on one side, people are saying it's state capture and forceful coercion and takeover. On the other side, E&P is saying that the company maintains that all key transaction milestones occurred before the 2024 elections, countering any claims of political interference. And although, you know, this deal, it involves internationals, including like an Australian company who originally owned this and have gone to arbitration. And now it seems like a Ghanaian company fully owns this, even though it's in arbitration. For me, it marks one of the largest locally owned gold mining initiatives in Ghana, signaling a shift away from foreign-led mining. So there is a positive angle to this in terms of Ghanaian-led, but you know, because arbitration is still going on about this, where both parties are arguing different things, it will be interesting to see when that arbitration concludes, how, if at all, it can affect this deal if sovereignty trumps everything else. I mean, so this is an interesting deal for me just because I didn't know much about it and the Daily Democrat just covered it, basically.
Okay, so, I mean, yesterday we even got into the story about E&P, of course, you know, a wholly owned Ghanaian company. Yeah. Leading the charge in mining, because we don't see that often. Even when you look at the oil sector, as much oil as, you know, and we have found new, you know, places to, you know, find oil. And we are still depending on more imports to fuel everything we need than exports. So if we have a Ghanaian right here in the country doing that, so like you said, it's controversial. And I'm not a lawyer, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that, but I want to hear, Mr. Vondi, your thoughts on this. People have also said that this is a political favor because Ibrahim Mahama's E&P, because of his exposure as a brother of the president, that name automatically opens doors. So that, is it 10 million or 100 million from ECOWAS?
100 million.
100 million.
Yeah.
That's only because, not only, but mostly because of this political exposure and undue advantage.
Well, I'll be very brief on that. You see, we kill our Ghanaian companies when we begin to say things like that. You know, fact that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is the senior brother of Ibrahim Mahama does not mean that Ibrahim Mahama should not do business. I'm sure that we all know in this country that Ibrahim Mahama started doing business before His Excellency Mahama became president, even in 2016. Does it mean that the fact that his brother is president, he shouldn't do business? I'm not saying that he should use the position to state capture, you know, things for himself. But I'm saying that there is no justification whatsoever to say that engineers and planners should stop doing business just because that his brother is president of the Republic of Ghana. Look, you remember the Nyinehini issue, right? Where His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's brother, Ibrahim Mahama, engineers and planners, wanted to mine, you know, the Nyinehini, you know, bauxite issue. And this government, the past government came in and took the deal from him, handed it over to this Chinese government that were going to take money to come and construct our roads and do what have you. A business that a Ghanaian company could do, we decided to take it away from him, handed it over to the Chinese people. What was the benefits that we got from that? Again, you know, Ibrahim Mahama's company, engineers and planners, are not companies that were formed just because his brother is president.
But their credibility in terms of whether or not they can fund this has come under question.
Look, this
now,
is
according to Azuma, let me read this out. According to Azuma, he said that the claims made by E&P in the press are not supported by law. That's not what I want. Right. So when we sought to maximize the involvement of Ghana companies, E&P offered to provide more than $250 million in funding, but to date, they've only been able to provide $4 million. And so they're concerned that if you've given this contract to a company without a demonstrated ability to fund it, then are you not shooting yourself in the leg?
You see, there is a company in Bolgathanga, Cardinal Maldini. It's a mining company, and Ibrahim Mahama's company is a local, contractor mining that. And you know that he's doing a lot of job for so many other companies in this country.
Of course.
He's a big businessman. If we cannot give these opportunities to our own people, when are we going to grow Ghanaian person to become business?
So
and
that's
that is
the
why,
question.
for example,
should we give the project to someone who can deliver or someone who is ours?
No, the point is that there is
a question
no,
between
listen,
a wholly owned Ghanaian company or someone who has a demonstrated ability or funding capacity to actually deliver?
You see, there is no evidence whatsoever to suggest that His Excellency, Ibrahim Mahama's company is not capable of delivering. There is no evidence. So somebody should show me that a job is given to Ibrahim Mahama and he was not able to deliver, and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
But there is no evidence. If you want to run the gentleman down, you're doing nothing. Because, you see, there is no evidence whatsoever that his brother gave him money that belongs to Ghana.
Clarification.
There's no evidence.
Azuma offered to sell the project to ENP for $100 million in May 2023. So this is not a case of some sort of, hostile takeover with people who didn't want to let go of the company. There was, I think they had a $5 million tax or something like that, a revenue, Ghana revenue and minerals tax. And different things. So they basically said they wanted to offer it, and then it moved from 100 million, but then I think as of mid-2024, they said they were going to do triple the amount, which meant that ENP took it to arbitration. So in fairness, this is a company that was up for sale. The original amount was 100 million. All of a sudden, they were moving the post to 300 million, which is why ENP first took it to court in the first place. And the irony, I think, at arbitration, the foreign Australian company was talking about 100 million, etc. And now ENP can do that because they've just secured a loan as of July 2025.
Oh, this year. Okay.
And you see,
I want to speed this up.
If you know how these things work, just quickly, if you know how these things work, you only need to show good books. And you can go into the capital market anytime, anywhere, to raise money to do this kind of mining. And Ibrahim is a very serious businessman.
Right.
So nobody should run it down. And I am so worried when we begin to run our Ghanaian companies down because of political agenda, and it's really wrong.
Right. So
it's wrong.
Dr. Zato, let's hear you out on this.
She's making a point.
It's wrong.
She's trying to say both sides, so she's being neutral.
I have to.
Yeah.
No, not you. I'm talking about who are making all capital out of nothing.
I am confident he disagrees with both of you. Go.
You remember Data Bank?
Yes, I remember Data Bank.
You remember Ken Oforiatta?
I know Ken Oforiatta.
You remember Nana Akufo-Addo?
And
then you remember Achem Mafia.
Okay.
For almost 8 years, that was a very, very simple, linear argument.
Of course, there was a trace to that. We all know that.
No, Mr. Bondi, let's hear him out.
We all know that.
Data Bank, Ken Oforiatta, Akufo-Addo, Achem Mafia. That was all you needed to know. I don't know a lot about this thing. There's a lot, there are legal things going on. I just want that anybody watching, just remember this. Ken Oforiatta, Data Bank, Ken Oforiatta, Akufo-Addo, Achem Mafia. Just remember that. Just keep that. That is all I want to say about it. But you were talking about stories I want to move to.
Yes,
there's a story here. This is Mohammed's LGBTQ.
I hope I get.
Mohammed's LGBTQ plus abstention worried. You see, again, let's go back and look at the whole debate coming to the elections about LGBTQ. Sometimes, see, governance is difficult and complicated, especially when you are in the international community negotiating. Sometimes it's about values, sometimes it's about things. And the international community and your negotiating partners can come at you and make demands. Some of the demands could be financial, some of the demands could be diplomatic, or some of the demands could be soft targets like LGBTQ. We all know all over the world, governments have used LGBTQ as a bargaining chip. Akufo-Addo did not not sign the LGBTQ. He didn't sign it. The government savaged him. Look, even if we start playing the videos from morning to midnight, we'll still see the videos. They savaged him. Today, you are in power. Today, you had a chance. All you have to do is that vote no. That is all. Don't do anything. Just raise your hand and vote no. Or just raise your hand and vote yes. But the government could not muster the courage to take a stand.
As a country, we haven't yet, we don't have a fixed position because you cannot call, you cannot call a law into question or into defense because we don't have a law yet. Look, we have a bill.
It doesn't matter.
And they're counting me down.
No. What are the point I'm making? This is important. When you argue that you are against LGBTQ, when you tell the whole world that when you come, we have government ministers says all you needed to do was to just raise your hand and vote no. All you needed to do was to look, in times of serious critical moral crisis, the hottest places in F are left for those who cannot decide. We had to decide. We have betrayed our values. We have betrayed the church. We have betrayed the mosques. We have betrayed Ghanaians in abstaining from this because we are telling them that we don't have a position. Meanwhile, we do. You cannot meet Catholic bishops and tell them that this is our position. You cannot campaign that this is our position. And then when they stand to take it, you don't do it. That is a betrayal of the people's trust.
The new republic.
We betrayed
no, Mr. You have betrayed the people's trust. And it's important that we do it. So today, what are you going to say?
Oh, calm down. You are in government, so give us a response. Why did you abstain? I know abstaining is in itself is a decision. No, but out of the 19 countries that voted no, 25 countries voted yes. We and 2 other countries abstained from the entire vote. Why?
But the truth is that Ghana is not a supporter of LGBT.
So why not vote no?
Hold on, please, hold on. Now, the decision to abstain, with the greatest of respect, I do not have any information, and so I'm not going to go so much into it. Let me not say
Amanda,
things that I do not know.
You are a lawyer.
But the point is that I am not a supporter of that kind of behavior. I don't think my church is a supporter. I don't think His Excellency John Dramani Mahama supported that.
You should vote no.
But the decision to stay out of it,
just vote no.
All right.
And so I'm not going to congest
anything.
So
he can speak.
I thought I was going to do my last thing.
Just vote no.
I thought I was going to do my last thing.
Break the tie for me. How do you feel about this? And give me where your legal hat's right now, and tell me how does this make us look as a sovereignty?
It makes us look like we don't want confrontation in relation to, the political nature of LGBTQ questions. We are conservative but cautious about, putting some sort of firm vote. And, it reflects a quieter, more inclusive posture than has been demonstrated by perhaps the Mahama's government. But who knows, maybe it's an evolving, more mature position where, yes, you say all this rhetoric like, we don't want it, we don't want it, we don't want it. But sometimes keep quiet, reflect as to what is the nation's posture, and then move forward.
That's our time. Read the headline,
the bombshell, Tokono drags nation to ECOWAS court over sacking bid.
Yeah.
So well, I just pray that she knows what she's doing and she has the rights to do it. So she should go and lose that one too, and come back. I wish I could deal with it properly. Those who join us for the conversation this morning,
Dr. Joshua Zato, Senior Lecturer, Department of Political Science at the University of Ghana. Mr. Bondi, no one can hear you. And we have David Bondi, he's Member of Parliament for Chifuiti Mokwa, and of course Amanda Clinton, Head of Chambers, Clinton Consultancy. It's been a great conversation this morning on the AM Show. But stay with us, because when we return from the break, we get into our big stories. And the AM Show, of course, is sponsored by Waylead Properties. We provide quality housing at affordable cost and with a flexible payment option. We'll be right back.